From Portland, Oregon, it's time for A Different View, with women's perspectives on the fight to end prohibition again, with Portland Dispensaries examiner and mother of four, Jennifer Alexander, and professional healthcare provider Iva Cunningham from Alternative Medical Choices, Inc. Now, here's A Different View.
Hi, this is Jennifer here with Iva. You're watching A Different View. We are here tonight for the first time with no engineers.
That's right, no engineer.
This is going to be fun. We have some good directions, though, so I think we'll get through it.
Well, I wouldn't say good. You can tell these were written out by Russ, and he does just a ton. If you ever watched him in action, he's doing 9 things all at once, and talking and looking up facts and citing information. I don't know how he does it all. And we're just going to try to do our simple show. I think we can.
We figured it out so far. The few little questions that we had.
Last 30 seconds. So we fumble our way through. If you drop the feed or suddenly the spaghetti monster jumps on screen, chances are we're trying to figure out something backstage.
So tonight we're going to talk a lot about the opposition to marijuana legalization. There's been so much coming out recently. We've had the Protect Our Society sign popping up all over Oregon.
Oh, yeah. And if you haven't seen the sign...
I did an article. You can see the sign clearly in my article. I put a picture. It's opposition to Measure 80 rears its ugly head. And it's...
I drove past it today and I nearly hit the TriMet bus. I'm not kidding. I looked at it because I was like, when I first saw the picture of the young woman, if you haven't seen it, check out Jennifer's article.
It's at examiner.com. I'm the Portland Cannabis Examiner.
That's right. This woman, it's a young girl. Her hair's all disheveled, and she's got dark bags under her eyes, and she's got this frowny face, and some obvious scabs on her face and shoulders.
In short,
and stuff.
She's a heroin addict.
Right. And they're saying, but the sign is marijuana. What is it good for? And then protectoursociety.com. And I gotta tell you, I don't know what made me more shocked, the picture of this young girl. I mean, because I find some of those pictures absolutely shocking. But that they had marijuana associated with that.
Okay, this is our cue to go to break. And I don't know.
So I guess we're gonna do it. We're gonna go to break. We'll talk more about this. You're listening to A Different View.
Organ grinder. Organ grinder, play that melody. Take your organ grinder and grind some more for me. Grind it north, grind it north, grind it north, grind it east or west. But when you grind it slow, that's when I like it best. Organ grinder, organ grinder, you don't have to pass your hat around anymore. 'Cause you're just the grinder I've been waiting for.
Oh, I like that song. Those are some great songs from the Viper Hour, is that right? I love that show. If you haven't checked that out, that's definitely a show to check out. Me too. And it's interesting, how they've coded everything in the lyrics. I love that. That's great. Well, speaking of images and billboards and all that stuff, we were talking before the break. We were talking about the sign "Save Our Society" that had the shocking picture of this young woman who, and then they were trying to scare us with marijuana. It's another one of those, this is your drugs on brains, and it's the scrambled eggs thing.
This is your drugs on brains. That's another one to add to the list. I love it. Actually, and I don't know if I can. This is like a very small picture, but here it is. Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if it'll work. I'm learning, but right there. if you can see that picture of that girl, she almost looks like a zombie. It's horrible. She's
Well, and
clearly
she's all
a heroin
scabbed up.
addict.
She's very thin and gaunt looking, and I'm sure a lot of that's makeup, of course. I mean, hey, heroin chick, would you like to take a picture? And let me put marijuana next to your name, because if you were smoking marijuana instead of doing heroin, you wouldn't look like that. I don't look like that, and I don't know anybody unless they are dealing with a chronic illness that might look like that.
Well, and again, like I said, this is
Now,
somebody
there
who's
are
drugged
people-
out on hard drugs.
Right.
This is heroin. This is meth. This is
Right,
these are the
and
drugs
I,
that
you know
we
what,
need
and I
people
would
to
not
get
say
involved
that
with.
she probably doesn't do marijuana, but she probably also does alcohol and prescription drugs, you know, but to say that, to blame, the implication is to blame marijuana, you know,
Right.
because, and this is, you know, Save Our Society is from,
Calvina Faye.
Calvina Faye. And in Calvina Faye, it's interesting if you don't know much about her. Well, you know more about her than I do, so.
And I'm still learning about her. People that have been, you know, involved in the movement for a long time, they're more familiar with who Calvina Faye is.
She's with a
But
drug-free.
she's worked for the ONDCP, which says a lot right there.
And she's
she was
with
a
the-
former advisor.
And she's a Drug-Free America Foundation.
Right, the Drug Free America Foundation. She's the founder and executive director of that. She's also the executive director of Save Our Society, which is the nationwide body that's basically the equivalent of this Protect Our Society. Roscoe. This Protect Our Society group, which is in Oregon here fighting against Measure 80, legalization, medical marijuana, all of it. She's worked with Robert DuPont and a number of other people. Betty Sembler, who was the founder of the Straight Inc. recovery group that was, I guess, indicted in multiple different states for basically torturing the children into being straight. Like, this was their method of dealing with it.
Tough love kind of stuff,
Very hard.
but more like abuse. All right, I have to deal with the Jack Russell. Excuse me.
So, anyway, Calvina Faye is highly, highly against legalization of marijuana. She has paid for all of the opposition so far here in Oregon. The Protect Our Society website is registered to Calvina Faye. The Protect Our Society group is founded by Calvina Faye. And the biggest oppositions that they have to legalized marijuana is that people would use marijuana, people would drive with marijuana, children would have access to marijuana. And these are all the arguments that we know are happening today. People are already using marijuana in large numbers. People are already driving, you know, after using marijuana. People are already providing marijuana to children, or children have access in whatever ways. So these are not concerns that are directly related to legalization. They're concerns regardless of prohibition or legalization.
Sorry, I got distracted by Jack Russell and a cat.
Fight like cats and dogs.
They love each other. I don't understand it.
So,
Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting because these seem to be all part of the same group of organization, all the same people who are in each of these foundations and boards. Isn't that what we were talking about earlier?
yeah, the same people.
They all
throughout.
commingle, and yeah, there's, you know, the same 9 people sit on 9 other boards that are all about anti-drug.
Sorry, still figuring it out.
Did you ever play with buttons over there?
My headphones don't have anything coming through them, so I didn't know.
Oh, I'll talk louder then. There's nothing coming on. Do you want me to tell you when there's music?
No, I mean, can you hear yourself?
Yes, I can.
See, I can't, so I just wanted to make sure.
Oh,
It's
okay.
okay, though.
You're being cheated.
No, it's because I still haven't figured out the headphones. But anyway.
Well, I find some of the stuff that she says, you know, inflammatory. Obviously, it's inflammatory, and you know, it beckons back to the day of Henry, or not Henry, but Anslinger. Gosh, where was I going? And it is, you know, it still exists today. People will still come out and, you know, talk about, you know, vilify marijuana as if it were, you know, people were living in the streets as this woman, and, you know, that the plant itself is frightful, and, you know, all of a sudden our children are going to be stoned and unmotivated, and it'll be the doper, you know, instead of Generation X, it'll be the dope generation.
Sorry.
You have to leave stuff
going.
alone.
I'm just moving the papers.
We're gonna work this out by the second segment. Jesus.
So the other thing about Protect Our Society is that so the sign that we were just talking about directs you to the website.
Right.
And when you go to the website, a great number of their citations for their facts are just dead links. They don't go anywhere. There's no
Oh, really? And they're just citing it as
right. And then the ones that do go somewhere are all like drug rehabs are their
like
citation.
advertising links kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's that interesting.
Instead of going to like a valid study or whatever, they'll go to a website that claims that some study exists.
And yeah,
and I found that astounding coming from a person who supposedly works so closely with our federal government, a former advisor.
Well,
to
I think the problem is that they're being paid to they're being paid to oppose us, and and why would they want to support their I don't have a 3-year-old. I have a Jack Russell.
and a door that we're afraid to shut.
We live in this really old house. For people who don't know, we live in this really old house. It's, God, 1,000 years old. And all the doorknobs lately and all the locks, I think it's haunted. Somebody must have died in this house. But anyway,
Laughing you out.
But I'm serious. Every single doorknob in this house has broken or is broken or on its way to falling off its screws.
Right.
Even the garage door, which is brand new.
There it is. Okay, I got it.
Hey, Jennifer, you're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Anyway,
back to the crazy people who fund her. A lot of these, the straights.com, a lot of these, like you're talking about scaring people straight, tough love kind of programs, where they're actually getting off on a lot of abuse that happens in these programs. There seems to be, they don't want you to do drugs, but they don't want you to be gay. So we're going to pray it away, and we're going to scare you,
beat it away,
and starve you to into nothing, just to get you to give up your drug of choice, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the other thing funny about Protect Our Society. When I went to their website, it says that, according to their about page, protectoursociety.org is the website. It says that they're dedicated to providing information about the harmful effects of marijuana, including scientific research and factual information from states that have legalized marijuana.
But they don't link to any.
Wait. No, think about that. States that have legalized marijuana are the
ones... Which are the none? Are they talking about medical? Are they?
Who knows? Maybe decriminalization. I mean, there's no states that have legalized marijuana.
I know. I was like, which state? Which state would that be? I want to go there.
This is unprecedented. I mean, like back, 1930s before, there was legal marijuana. But once it was outlawed, since we've experienced this, we've got nothing to reflect back on. And if you reflect back on the society that was, 1930 and before, it was other drugs of choice.
Right.
It was only, certain classes of the population that were using marijuana, the jazz musicians.
Right.
The Mexican, immigrant workers, the black people, the people that they wanted to degrade anyway.
Right. And to be fair, we're also making money providing this tobacco and cannabis and that sort of stuff. And that pissed off a lot of people. Did you know that?
No.
I'm
not sure what you just said.
Part of the reason why these people were so vilified is because that they were making money selling this, making a living, and they were doing quite well because
it was providing them with an economic
opportunity. Right, exactly. It was an economic opportunity, and there wasn't any other economic opportunity around. And if you remember, the borders were open then. And I mean, there wasn't really a border. It was right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was, but
not to the extent that we have it today.
But we have crossing, border patrol, police, and that sort of thing. I mean, and so and when the United States was in such economic crisis, this was offensive. And there's a lot of quotes about people who were that's where they're taking our jobs came from.
Right. So, the website.
It's
sorry.
not just me.
No, the website really is just interesting because as you're going through each of these different categories of reasons for why they're opposed to marijuana, they've got one section that's called the marijuana scam, and it's all about medical marijuana, and they go on to explain, THC is so dangerous, and but here, take Marinol. That'll help you.
Well, I love that argument.
When it's 100%
Just
THC.
synthetic, yeah.
So, but then there's just the interesting perspective, I guess. These are the people that I would consider the sole real opposition to legalized marijuana, whether medical or for recreational use, for any use. They, contrary to 75 to 80% of Americans who believe that medical marijuana should be allowed for whatever reason your doctor says it's useful for. That's like 3/4 of all Americans, not just Oregonians or Portlanders, the country, believe that medical marijuana should be available. Their way to fight against recreational marijuana or legal marijuana is to say, what's good about marijuana? Nothing.
Right.
And
that is their argument. Nothing.
Of marijuana, or 75% of Americans disagree with you about marijuana. They think it's good for something, even if only peace of mind. I mean, I will grant you that 75% of Americans don't necessarily believe that marijuana is the end-all, be-all to everything. But 75% of Americans do believe that you should have the right to use medical marijuana.
No, I was thinking, did you turn it down? Are we supposed to be on a break? Can they hear us?
No, we're here.
Oh, okay. Oh, good.
We're here.
Oh, good. Well, I was afraid.
Yeah, no, we're still here. We're good, I think. I can't
We're
tell.
trying. That's all I can say is we're giving our best
hopefully
shot.
Get feedback when it's all done.
We'll get lots of feedback, I'm sure.
But so really, to me, it seems like, at best, they're out of step with 75% of Americans,
okay. Right?
Let alone Oregonians, which I think would be even a higher number if we had that particular polling data. They also really seem to miss what the argument is. And I don't know if that's our fault or their fault, but the argument isn't what's good about marijuana. That's not even the question. The question is what's good about prohibition.
Right.
And this
right,
is where
exactly. And that's where
are...
we have to change the conversation. It's not about what's good or bad about marijuana. It's why prohibition should end because it doesn't work. It's an abstinence thinking.
It's not even just that it doesn't work. It's that it's harmful. It's that,
right.
that it's actually creating problems. Because if it was just that it didn't work,
it's, you know what,
we
it's
could
not
trudge
the,
along
it's,
and continue to do it.
Exactly.
But it's harmful.
Right. And, the idea that we're going to get rid of all drugs by making it illegal or prohibiting it is a childish notion. It's like, if I say it's bad, then you won't try to get into it. It's like, that saying when you have kids, if you put a book on the highest shelf, they will climb the shelf to get to it.
Oh, yes, they will.
Yeah, but if you put it right in front of them, well, that's not very interesting because that's what they can get to.
Right.
And I think, they
with
think
4 boys, trust me, I know
they're stacked
that
on top of each other. They do the pyramid.
Yes, standing on each other's shoulders.
Yeah, I have 7. Not boys. I don't have children. I have brothers. That's what I meant. I meant brothers. Woo. But anyway, oh boy, I'm tired. But I think that we go. I would say this all the time. This idea of abstinence for drugs and for sex, or just say no, or any, that idea is an immature thought. Is I think that we're not giving children the credit that they deserve, as far as being intelligent and teaching them, good drugs, bad drugs.
Right, and we're actually going to definitely be talking about that some more into the third segment here, because there's a whole campaign about what about the children. So,
yes,
but
we've talked about that before.
We have, and I kind of want to come back to it now that it's so relevant. Let's see this for a second. Yeah, I think I missed something. But anyway, it's all good.
We're just going to keep on talking. I don't know if we're supposed to have a break or...
No,
I don't know what the deal is.
Well, no, it's coming up. But I'm just
I
confused on the timing of it. I don't know if I did something wrong or if it's set wrong.
I doubt
it's just
it.
a little off. But either way,
we're learners.
Yeah, either way, I think it's
We're
just
not experienced.
humming.
We're experienced learners. That was the word I learned when I was in Florida. Experienced learner.
I'm an experienced learner for sure.
I'm an experienced learner. And when I heard that, I started laughing. I go, I wonder if they're talking about me. Because I'm older. Is that what they mean? Older?
No, just
learner?
Somebody who's done a lot of learning.
I'm real good at it.
But yeah, so back to the anti-marijuana campaigns. The one thing that I have found most interesting is the strategy, and I think that it's. We were talking a little bit last week about PACs and super PACs.
Oh yeah.
And the way that this is managed, they're not filing anything with the elections, the state of. Secretary of State Elections Division, because they're not actually opposing Measure 80. They're opposing marijuana
in general.
And by doing that, we have no way of knowing who's paying for this. We have no way of knowing how much money is being spent and by who and where. And this...
You know what I find really sad? I got to tell you, this is what I think is really sad, is I haven't seen a single ad, a single lawn sign, poster, flyer. I mean, I've seen lots on Facebook. I've seen lots on Facebook, and to be fair, a lot of us are on Facebook.
But that goes back to
everybody.
One of the other interesting things that I've noticed driving around the last few days is that it looks like there's these whole stretches of highway, basically, of public land that I'm presuming is public land anyway, easements and things like that, just littered with signs.
Sure.
Why aren't ours there? It looks to me like anybody can put a sign out there. Why aren't ours there?
Right.
I'm driving down the highway and seeing, campaign signs along the side of the road. Just the little metal ones stuck in the ground.
Well, and I have a friend I would consider is pretty conservative, and she as soon as it made the ballot, she goes, "Thank God we have something on the ballot."
Welcome again to this neighborhood.
All right, we're taking a break. You'll listen to a different
show
view.
You something. You know what this is? Well, maybe if I press this button. This is a cassette player with a little cassette in here, and there's nothing written on it, so we'll just have to play it to see what it is. Do you ever imagine things? Are they scary things? Do you ever imagine things you'd like to have? Did you ever see a cat's eyes in the dark and wonder what they were? Did you ever pretend about things like that before? Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world. Some can do some things, some can do others. Did you ever think of the many things you've learned to do? Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow. Did you feel like going like that? Let's give the fish some food. Mr. McFeely, I didn't order any whistles. That's what they call a slide whistle. Did you feel like going like that? There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow.
We're not looking to end beer summits at the White House, or change the way people behave on the campaign trail. We just believe adults, in the privacy of their homes, should be allowed to use marijuana instead of alcohol if that's what they prefer. 40 years ago, our government launched an irrational war on marijuana for reasons unrelated to the actual and limited harms of the substance. It's time for a more sensible approach. It's time to regulate marijuana. Paid for by the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana.
When I get high, smoke up the sky, blowing in the wind, smelling like a skunk die. Pride of my mind, smoking on the kind. When I twist up for 20 feet of time. When I get high, smoke up the sky, blowing in the wind, smelling like a skunk die. Pride of my mind, smoking on the kind. When I twist up for 20 feet of time.
Get your bag, break it down, twist it up, it's time to smoke. Get your pipe, get your phone, light it up and take a toke. No joke, the house of chronic, smoking now until we float. Sometimes I get so high, I gotta tie them with a rope.
Welcome back. You're listening to A Different View. I'm still figuring it out.
That's right. I don't think that we will do this again.
Oh, practice.
Practice
is a good thing.
Man, I don't think my ADD would survive what you're doing right now. I have to just tell you that Russ does a lot. He does.
I gotta say, this is fun, though.
Really? You're okay.
I'm a little crazy. It's
chaos
like
is not
a
my
roller
thing.
coaster.
I don't like chaos.
So, now that we're back, I wanted to talk a little bit about the federal arguments against marijuana legalization.
Oh, they're fun.
And medical marijuana in general. So Kevin Sabet is of course the new loud and out there opposition to medical marijuana and marijuana legalization. And I know Russ has debated him a few times.
Oh, yeah.
We had our engineer here.
Oh, my gosh.
I had him play a little clip of Kevin Sabet because it would have been great.
It was awesome.
But Kevin
proud.
Sabet kind of presents himself as this ultra rational person who wants what we want and is looking out for our best interests. He's like your pal, you know.
Right. He doesn't want to see you in jail, but I'm gonna keep locking you up.
But right, and so
I'm gonna keep the laws that lock you up anyway.
He's sort of like the epitome of all of the arguments against prohibition, though, because it's sort of like a delusional position to hold, to claim that that I don't know, that what we're doing is so dangerous, so horrible, so vile that we must prohibit it. We must, continue to wage this war on drugs. But nobody really cares if you're smoking pot.
But you're right. I agree with you. I agree with you that prohibition has been a failure and hasn't worked out. But we're not going to do anything. But legalizing, that's not the answer.
Well, I know,
regulation, that's not the answer.
He doesn't say we're not going to do anything. He says that we're going to change our way of thinking. We're going to look towards, treatment and rehabilitation and drug courts and all of these things that in his mind are the solution.
And if you need any of that, you can find links to that to Calvina Faye's what was the article? Name of the article?
Oh, about, Kevin Sabet, you mean? The Calvina Faye is the opposition to Measure 74 rears its ugly head on Cannabis Examiner, Portland Cannabis Examiner. If you Google my name, it'll take you straight to my page and you can see it. It's opposition.
But I was talking about all of her dead links.
Right.
But they would all go to treatment facilities.
Oh, her website.
Yeah,
directly.
yeah.
I thought you meant the links to her information. It's Protect Our Society.
That's right, Protect Our Society.
Now, the thing about that website, though, is that it doesn't tell you very much about who they are. There's no about page. There's no... But if you do go a who is, which is how you determine
it's strictly PR.
Registered, it's registered to Calvina Faye. So she's the owner of that website. Ironically, I haven't been able to put this in my articles because I haven't been able to confirm it. But on the radio show, I can throw it out there. Maybe somebody else, will know. But ironically, even though these signs bear the protectoursociety.org website, which is registered to Calvina Faye, when somebody on Reddit contacted Calvina Faye, she said that the person who put out those signs didn't have authority to use that website name on there.
Oh, really?
So that's its own little interesting thing that I'm curious to find out about. But
You're just pounding on the desk. Like,
oh, sorry.
Ouch.
Like, wasn't sure what I had done. But the perspective between like the Calvina Faye argument and the Kevin Sabet argument, though, is where I kind of go back to the Calvina Faye is our real opposition. Kevin Sabet is saying what we're saying. He's just trying to offer up a different solution that's also not effective. You know, he's admitting the failure of the drug war. He's admitting.
Yeah, but I didn't hear any or any solutions or alternatives to what
I disagree with his
other
solutions,
than treatment.
but his solutions are drug courts.
Right. Well, sure. You know, and because they exist now, I see him not, and they're not working.
No, but he wants to shift our focus from incarceration to drug courts.
Well, and I would say that's not
finding a new solution. That's just changing the balance, and I don't think that's sufficient.
Well, if you're forcing people to go to drug court, I think that there are, just like anything else, just like overeating and other issues of obsession or addiction, there should be an opportunity for people to get treatment if they so choose.
Right.
You know, people always think, oh, you have to force people into rehab. Circumstances, you know, if that's the case, if people are truly addicted to the point where it's affecting their lives, circumstances will eventually force them there anyway, or they will die, or they will persist in their situation, obviously. But I think there's enough proof that proves, you know, forcing people to go into rehab for whatever reason is not a solution, because if you don't want rehab, if you don't want to be really rehabilitated, you won't be.
Anybody
it's a choice.
That's done, you know, any kind of treatment or rehabilitation, addiction counseling or anything like that knows is that is the first thing. You have to want to be
there
better. You have to want to change. If you don't want to change, no amount of coercion will convince you to. Right. And then the other thing that really stands out to me, being a mom of 4 boys and just my own experiences growing up and everything, and studies, you know, they show that education is how we change our consumption habits, whether it's about eating better food, whether it's about, you know, smoking cigarettes, the education campaign against, you know, the harms that tobacco causes, all of these things. Education overwhelmingly is the solution. We know this. Not even if you look at parenting, you know, studies, they talk about, you know, information and positive reinforcements being the way that you encourage a certain behavior, that negative reinforcements tend to be counterproductive. And yet in our society at large, we look to these negative instead of the time. Well,
we do a lot of we do a lot of shame, guilt, and fear to try to convince people to change their way of thinking. And we do that with, like, the Humane Society is a perfect example. And I have to say that we should be ashamed of the way we treat animals in this country. But I think that's an extreme example of how we use, you know, fear and shame and guilt to change people's behavior.
Right.
And I think it happens for a short time, and then people get tired of it. They get, oversensitized or desensitized. That's what I'm saying. Because it's just like, you know, and that issue falls out of favor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the homeless was a concern, and now, you know, all the celebrities are talking about save our children or whatever, save the world. I forget. You know, we're always saving something, and then people get tired of it, and suddenly it's not as important. And then we go back to vilifying them.
Right.
And that is the cycle, it seems to be, of our society. And I think we can't let that happen when we're talking about ending prohibition. If we can recognize what they're trying to do and then counter it with facts and real conversation, you know, education has always proven to be the best motivator for changing people's behavior.
Right.
And guilt and shame, like I said, only lasts temporarily. So I find it interesting that they keep using the same tactics, but yet people are getting smarter and smarter and wiser and realizing that this just isn't the way.
Right. Well, and we talked about what about the children campaign a while back. Yes. And, you know, I mean, I'm really impressed with this website in general, just because they've
done a thorough job.
Well, they've at least acknowledged where we are in this conversation.
Yeah.
And that is a completely honest approach that I can appreciate, even though they disagree with where I would like to see our policies go on the whole. They acknowledge the trend of where we're going and seek to engage in that process and create something we can all deal with.
And we've talked about how encouraging this is, because this is, even though as I read, there's still a lot of, fear and phobia. And if you want to read the article or go to their website, it's www.whataboutthechildren.org. And just read their website. They've got a lot of stories about, medical marijuana or marijuana use before age 18, tied to drop in IQ and some other articles. But, it's still a lot of the ignorance-based propaganda that we hear a lot of. And I think, but they are having that conversation. If legalization occurs, profit motives will quickly trump public health concerns. So, it's the first time I think that, if a legalization occurs, the rest of that is not true.
Or at least we disagree with where they're taking
right.
conclusions.
But at least they're having that conversation if it happens, because they see it as a possibility. And where do we meet in the middle? So these are the people we should be reaching out to and having a conversation with.
Absolutely, and I still want to. I still would love to, get into a engaging discussion with these people. I think, not just a brief, because I think looking at their website, I can get a general gist of where they're going. But I want to see that conversation happen right there. Those people with people like myself who feel that it is time to change these issues. I mean, I am not a person running around screaming, free the weed and let's get high. And I'm a mom, my perspective isn't quite that perspective. Now, I don't have anything wrong with that perspective, though. And I think that sets me apart from some other people. I think that I see the same thing in that as I see in people that, get a 12-pack to go get drunk this weekend and nobody cares about
Let me ask you a question. Excuse me. What was the first time you ever were aware of alcohol? I mean, didn't drink it, but just made aware of what alcohol was. Like, it was an intoxicant and it made your parents loopy or whatever.
No. I know for a fact that that I used to drink beers, not like multiple beers myself, but sip off of beers from as early as like 5 years old.
Okay.
On New Year's Eve, people would be drinking champagne, and we were allowed to drink a little with them. It was never a
and
it was no different than the tea and water going around. And it just wasn't.
Right, and my parents, my mother didn't drink. She's pretty close to a teetotaler. She'll have a foo-foo, lots of sugar drink, makes her diabetes go crazy. But anyway, but my dad used to always have Royal Crown or Seagram 7 or something like that. And we always knew what the bottle was. Right. It wasn't like it was just, but we knew it was there, and we knew that he would have a drink once in a while, and we knew he was copping a buzz.
Right.
He would never get out of control, but we knew that's what it was. He was like, I had a bad shift, I need a drink. That was it. And it was no big deal. Now, how old were you the first time you were ever exposed to marijuana or understood it as an intoxicant?
Actually, I must have lived a very sheltered childhood because, I knew there were people all around me that were using a variety of substances and not just marijuana. Marijuana wasn't, I knew people that were using LSD, at school. I was aware of all of this, but not in any intimate way where I didn't know any more about any one of these substances than the other than what you were learning in DARE class.
What's the first time you saw it, though? First time
18.
18, yeah. And I remember I was actually very young. I was 12. Okay, the first time I was like, but my experience was very different because I was with my older siblings. And some of them did, some of them didn't. But I also noticed that some people were playing quarters. I mean, I was very young and I shouldn't have been there, but anyway, I was. But what I did observe is I didn't drink and they didn't let me drink or smoke. I was just kind of being babysat. That's kind of how I felt. But what I did notice is I was old enough to realize that people that were drinking, playing quarters, remember that game? Playing quarters were getting out of control. Then there was a small group of people who were just smoking pot. And they were laughing and giggling and having a good time, but they weren't out of control. Nobody was angry. A couple people had the munchies and some people fell asleep.
Yeah.
but if you ask a lot of people, the first time that they saw it or were aware of it, they were much older. But alcohol's always been in and the thing is that alcohol is much more deadly than marijuana. And I think that this idea that, all of a sudden, it's going to run rampant in the hills is, so what?
Well, and
so what? Because it's a better choice than alcohol. So what if it does? Because I think we're still going to have the same level of rational thinking. In fact, probably more, because alcohol, impairs your judgment, and cannabis doesn't. And I think, if we make a switch from alcohol to cannabis, woohoo!
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is that I think the most interesting thing to me, looking back on my personal experience, growing up, my family, my friends, my environment in general, at school, all of that, I know for a fact from about 6th grade on that if I had ever wanted to know more about marijuana, I could have, with a single question. I mean, I knew exactly who to ask. I knew where I could have. I just never had any interest to go look for it. You know what I mean? Until I was 18. But it was always plentifully around me, And I think that we have these illusions that to switch back for a second, and then I'll explain the illusion, is that even though alcohol was always around me in such abundance, I never could have gotten a 12-pack from my parents or something. You know what I mean?
My dad marked the bottle.
Right. It was abundantly around, but it wouldn't have been I could have gone and gotten drunk on it. It was not available to me, even though it was always around, and there wasn't really a restriction against it directly.
Right. There was an understanding. There was an understanding that's adult, just like coffee, that was for adults. There were adult things.
It wasn't mine to get into on my own. It wasn't for me.
Right.
Even if it was shared with me at any given point, it wasn't mine. It wasn't allowed. And it was a respect issue, I think, almost, that with our children now, we manage a lot of these things in a different way. We drug test our I think Russ did a story recently about a 6th grader for band or something had to do drug testing. I mean, it just gets more and more ridiculous. It's pretty soon we're going to be drug testing the kindergartners before they can attend school.
Oh, there were two boys that were two boys. I thought this was funny. Not funny, haha. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
There was this. Two young students that were expelled from school for taking caffeine pills,
like mini thins or something like that.
Right, and they were in a package, sealed package, but unmarked. Okay, now the same school sells Red Bull, a lot of the energy drinks, coffee to students, frappuccinos, cappuccinos, things like that, sodas. All those stimulants. And they got expelled, not because it was an illegal drug, but because the package wasn't clearly marked. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So you just have to invent paranoia and shit to kick our kids out of school. I mean, seriously. And so now these kids are having to deal, they were expelled, and, and this is going to go on their permanent record. But it could have an effect,
on their future,
on them going to college. It could have an effect on them getting student loans.
Well, no, and this is how early we're starting to sort of create this second-class citizen. I mean, it's from the time that they are little kids, when they're denied participation in sports, when they're denied participation in extracurricular, and all because of their urine. And again, I think Russ has pointed this out, but the same thought for me is, if I am a 16-year-old or a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old or whatever, and I'm already using drugs, isn't the best thing that could happen is that I could get involved in sports or extracurricular or something else that draws me away from that lifestyle? Right. Why would we deny that opportunity?
Well, and they used to say how kids can't cruise downtown because they get together and they cause problems. Well, before that, kids used to have hangouts. There used to be places for them to go, and they would have a lot of the opportunity to play sports or engage in extracurricular activities after school that were kept kids occupied and out of trouble. Have all been cut.
Yeah.
So now what we decided is that we're just going to bore the crap out of them and kick them out of all these programs that are, in sports that would keep them, that's our cue, that keep them engaged and out of trouble.
Right. So
I guess we're taking a break.
Not quite yet. We got a second to talk before we jump into the break, but not long. I was going to say that website that we were just talking about, but whataboutthechildren.com or .org?
I have .org, but whataboutthechildrencampaign.org?
But whataboutthechildren.org? Definitely check that out, because that's like where we get a better perspective at what the conversation should be to bring.
Hey,
both
you can
sides
join
to
the campaign too.
So we're going to go to break. We'll be right back. You're listening to A Different View. Our Twitter is ADV420. Our website is
I don't know. I know our Facebook
view.us, I believe.
Facebook is A Different View.
And you're watching us on RadicalRuss.com.
There you go.
Everybody grab that glass, cause the good stuff's about to pass. And hey, let's get gay, cause stuff is close the doors, start the party up once more. Hey, hey, let's get gay, cause stuff is here. Everybody grab a glass, the good stuff's about to pass. Hey, hey, let's get gay, cause stuff is here. Piano man falls upon his stool, plays that piano like he's nobody's fool. Everybody grab that glass, cause the good stuff's about to pass. Hey, hey, let's get gay, cause stuff is here.
I'm Subcool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Wow, I liked that.
That's very pretty.
Wow. They're listening to A Different View. On Soft Rock. Oh, that's nice. We may have to listen to the song.
I'll leave it going.
That's kind of
quietly.
groovy.
We can keep talking. It's all right.
Jennifer, leave the tools alone. Okay, now she's having too much fun. How funny. Oh, goodness. Okay, so one of the things that we saw in, the theme of the show tonight, if you can figure it out as us bumbling through, and is, the strange messages coming from the opponents. And on the Oregonian editorial page, what the title was, The Fee Increases.
It was...
Oh, hooray for the fee increases.
No, hooray for hooray for increased pot fees.
That's right.
That was the print version. When it went to the online version, they got rid of that hooray, and who knows why, but probably because their online audience wouldn't have been nearly as forgiving for that sort of just blatant.
I felt like it was a big giant finger. It was like, ha ha, look at you poor people. You thought you were going to get one over on us. That's how I felt. I mean, that's how I looked at it. It's like, how dare you?
Sorry, you keep.
What are
going
you
for a
fumbling
minute.
with there, Jennifer?
I'm figuring it out. Let me let me fumble for a second longer. Okay, I think I got it figured out. But anyway, so the Oregonian has been writing multiple articles, over, the last few years at the very least, but in the last few months, just it's been insane how many articles they've written about marijuana from one perspective or another, whether it's attacking the medical marijuana program, raising the issue about trafficking of medical marijuana.
Oh yeah, they've been really down on it.
I mean, they've been all over the place.
It's almost like the last probably 2 months. It seems like there's been article every day. There's been more than one article.
Well, and we know that they have Noelle Crombie personally assigned to writing marijuana
She's the pot
issues.
journalist.
And she's not the only one.
No.
There's a Jeff Merckx, I think his name is, also writing marijuana articles, and a couple of others. So, I mean, they've got like multiple staff members on this issue.
And to be, and really, I'm not surprised. The Oregonian has always written anti-marijuana pieces with lots of scare, and they always whenever we'd have the marijuana march, I remember they would film all the children, and they would go up to mothers and they'd say, how do you feel about your child's coming to this event and being exposed to all these people, and things like that, like, oh my gosh, the people, oh okay, well, if they weren't holding pot signs, how would you know what they were?
Right.
And you know what I mean? And they would write a lot from that angle. They, from a disparaging tone.
Well, and so this is what I've noticed. Now, Noelle has written quite a few.
And I've talked to Noelle.
So have I. And she's written quite a few articles that have sort of offended our community, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Because I don't think that hers are quite as flaming as the editorial board articles, but at the same time, they have been kind of insulting to
I get the feeling that if she didn't take that slant, she wouldn't have a job at the Oregonian.
Well,
that's my feeling I get. I don't know that to be true.
But that goes to my interesting point here that I was going to say, is that Noelle has written a few more positive stories for our community. One of them had to do with PTSD and how that's been trying to be added.
She did talk about the safe access points too, the dispensary.
And she's recently just done an article about the fee increase, which I think could have identified a little bit of the concerns a little more directly than it did. But she did a really good job with what she put. Immediately after every even mildly positive article, the editorial board has to quickly jump in there and counter on how wrong this perspective is. And it's ridiculous. It's over and over again. And this hooray for increased pot fees article is that exactly. Many patients feel like the increased fees have pretty much pushed them out of the program. And that article, editorial, quotes Peter Buckley as saying basically that it was thought in the legislature that the increased fees might discourage some from taking advantage of the program.
Right.
And that's true. What's not mentioned in that editorial is that it's not discouraging the criminals from participating. If I'm selling marijuana for the whatever, $5,000 a pound, I think they're claiming it sells for on the East Coast, it doesn't matter that I'm now being charged $200 to participate. That's a one-time fee. For how many pounds do they claim that these criminals are able to, you know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. Of course the criminals aren't being obstructed in any way by them increasing those fees. But the poor, sick, disabled people are now criminals. So what we've done is we've created more criminals, no matter how you look at it.
Well, the thing is that, vilify the medical marijuana program as much as you want to. I don't really care. The truth of the matter, and I think Lee Berger said this a long time ago, that what people are forgetting, what our legislators are forgetting, and what we're not doing a good job saying is, look how many people were regulated from the black market. Changing that conversation, and it's like those people used to have to go to the drug dealer, wait 3 days. Hopefully it was stuff that wasn't dekeefed or moldy, or where it's clean and safe. I mean, I've heard of horrific stories, and and now that's giving them some regulation, rules to follow.
Right. I mean, there's safety issues there. There's quality issues there. There's messaging issues there. Why would we encourage our sick people to go under the bridge to go find some drug dealer.
Right. And it's again, it's they're not vilifying the sick person. I don't think that's it. I think they're vilifying the sick person's choice. And it's almost, but that's how they're coming off. I don't think that they realize that that's exactly what they're doing. Is like, because if you're dealing with any kind of chronic illness, if you're dealing with anything, I don't care what it's, anxiety, you're living on a fixed income because it is impairing your life.
Right.
It's impairing your life. And even if you choose, and here's the other thing too, is I love it when they want to, all these people are just getting, if you're lucky enough to afford the program, if you're lucky enough to afford it, that's the fees that the state charges and the doctor's fees, and then go out and find somebody, and then if you have to get it to grow for you, and then, just the cost of it alone. If you're fortunate enough to afford it, and I think, what were you saying? It's like 55 cents a day or something like that? Or
in that article, that they broke it out to be 55 cents a day.
That's not you. They, yeah. Sorry.
No, but I quoted that in my response, which I know is where you said you left off. This was in the Oregonians Hooray for Increased Pot Fees online. They said that the cost of the $200 fee per year was only 55 cents per day, which was like the cost of a coffee, and made it sound like it was just no big deal. And they tried to say that this was all okay. That this was all okay, that they were charging this much more because, you should be so happy that for only 55 cents a day you can participate, neglecting the fact that for 55 cents a day you get no marijuana, no direction on where to get marijuana. You may have your house raided, your children taken from you, kicked out of your home, lose your job. I mean, the list goes on and on. All this for only 55 cents a day.
Yeah.
And they're not paying you that 55 cents, you're paying
them. Yeah.
And that doesn't also take into account the change fees, the grower fees, all of these additional
and then if your
fees.
grower gets raided and you have to change your card again and apply for another one, and another grower, that's $150.
And for all these costs, again, not a single bud of marijuana. Not one.
And that's before you get anything.
Right.
Before you get anything.
It just really, really, really offends me from that perspective. I'd like to challenge that Oregonian editorial board to debate me on this. I've been trying to get them to do a debate in general, but the more that they go on about this, the more I want to debate this Eric Lentz guy on his issues, because he's got just such an asinine perspective.
Well, I think, I think, again, it goes back to us educating them and making a stronger message, and it's point and counterpoint.
Yeah.
And I mean, and really their opposition is pretty poor. I mean, oh no, what is...
I does he honestly believe that increasing the fees kept the criminals away?
Am I supposed to be listening to music? Oh, okay. All right.
We are wrapping it up. Chief. I love Chief Greenbud.
I see. He's in love with the Chief.
Well, no, the music.
Oh, okay. Well, Chief's a pretty good guy.
He's married, I'm married, we're all good.
That's right, he is. He's a nice guy. Very nice guy.
No, but this song, this is my song for us legalizing too, The Long, Long Road.
It is a long road, and we have many battles to fight, and don't give up, because it's worth it. It is for our children's future. It is, for the people who are in prison. It's for the mothers who are losing their children. It's for the poor student who's lost his opportunity to go to school. It's for our environment and our economy.
Definitely. So, last thing, as we're getting ready to wrap up, it's 1 week before the voter registration deadline here in Oregon. So anybody in Oregon needs to get registered to vote now, and you can do that at OregonVotes.org. We should be wrapping up our shows. We should kind of throw out there again, you're listening to A Different View. I'm Jennifer with Iva.
Well, you catch us on the replay, which is, I don't remember.
I
some
believe
strange
it's
schedule.
at 3 a.m. and then it's at 9 a.m. and then next Tuesday it's at 3 p.m. and then our live show again at 8 p.m.
All right.
And that's at RadicalRuss.com. And ADB420 is on Twitter, at DifferentView420.
I don't know if they can hear us through all that music.
I don't know. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us with no engineer. We look forward to seeing you next week.
It's a long, long